On. So hopefully third time's a charm. It's my third time starting this live stream, and the world's noisy. So it's about this one is about the new moon today. So it's a new moon, sidereal. It's what, 7 degrees Scorpio, tropical, 1 degree Sagittarius. So yeah, I think kind of a big new moon, really. So we're about an hour away from the maximum. So it's about 5 p.m. here on the east coast of the United States. So we're getting into the evening here. The maximum is just shy of 6 o'clock, so within an hour. So yeah, new moons are interesting times. Basically, a new moon, it's the darkening of the moon. So the moon is cut off from the light of the sun. So sun is a macro for the soul, moon is a macro for the mind. When I talk about the mind, I'm not just talking about the intellect, but I'm talking about the emotional consciousness. So your emotional consciousness and your whole personality, really. So, and basically, we get this monthly darkening of the moon. So we get this monthly new moon. When it's cut off from this light, you can basically take inventory about what's going on in your emotional world, your inner world, and understand it more. It's like recreation, right? So the word recreation, if you put the emphasis on it differently, it's recreation. So it's taking time out to recreate yourself. So the new moon's very much like this, or just any darkening of a luminary. So solar eclipse, lunar eclipse. It's this darkening where the light's cut off and you can basically, you get a break from this, constant stream of energy within your consciousness. So basically the stream gets cut and you can kind of like deal with what you already have without new energy coming in. So that's the way I look at the new moon. Another way to look at it is it's kind of a conception. So a conception is a beginning, but it's not a birth. So within the animal kingdom, humans, all animals, they're conceived, they gestate, and they're born. So when they're born, they take their first breath. But it's not the very beginning. The very beginning is the conception. But you can't see it because it takes place in utero. So, and it's interesting, in like a lot of East Asian cultures, they'll actually measure somebody's age from their conception rather than their birth. So, yeah, new moons are conceptions. They're like the first beginning. But it takes some time to gestate, what they've begun. So yeah, new moons, people can feel isolated. They can feel despondent, especially if they're in your ascendant sign or your moon signs. And it's, that's one of the values of actually having your astrology read, is because you get a sense for this sort of map of your consciousness. So as these full moons, new moons, eclipses, all these different transits go on through the year, you can understand how they're going to affect you, especially when you look at your ascendant sign and your moon sign. But the other houses are important too. So yeah, so this new moon is beginning something new. Now, we got to look at it from these different points of view. And through the lunar mansions. These lunar mansions are important. I'm really focusing, in this case, on the tropical placement of this new moon. So the tropical placement of this new moon, this conjunction of sun and moon, it's 1 degree Sagittarius in the lunar mansion of Hecate. So I'll get into more about Hecate in a minute here. So let's do the sidereal first. Usually I focus more on sidereal, but depends what's going on. So sidereal, 7 degrees Scorpio. So what's Scorpio? Scorpio is transformation. It's sudden ups and downs. It's secrets and taboos, so it can deal with conspiracies, scandals, just things that people would rather not have see the light of day. It's also institutional money. It's other people's money. It's like settlements, pensions, banks, investment funds, all that kind of thing. Currencies, central banks. So all that stuff. Sidereally, the lunar mansion that it's in, it's actually in the most stable part of Scorpio. So Scorpio can be very off the wall, it can be volatile, because Scorpio is basically the gate to the underworld, to your personal underworld and the universal one, where all the emotional and mental creepy crawlies hide. But this part of Scorpio it's ruled by Saturn. It's extremely stable. So the Vedics call it Anuradha. That's what they call this lunar mansion. And again, if you're not familiar with my work or, the work of astrologers who talk about lunar mansions are the 27 constellations that make up the 12 sun signs. So they're more specific than the sun signs because there are 2.5 of these lunar mansions in each sun sign. It's kind of like the tropical decan system. Decans are much more symmetric because you've got 36 of them. So you have three decans in each of the 12 sun signs, making 36. Lunar mansions are 13 degrees each, rather than the 10 degrees of the decans. So so you have 2.5 of these in each sun sign. So in every sign you'll have a lunar mansion that straddles one, but it straddles two, so it goes from one end to the other. So anyway, the Western name for this lunar mansion is Urania. So Urania is basically like a higher vibration, a higher octave of the planet Venus. So Venus is all social activity. It's all about sensuality and enjoying the material experience that the 3D offers us. It's friendship, it's diplomacy, it's mediation, it's keeping the peace. Venus is also protection. Venus is love too, but Venus has a very carnal, kind of physical, sensual, sexual aspect to it. Urania, it levels it up. So it's kind of a more divine aspect where it's like pure divine love without the physical component, even though the physical component can be a doorway into that universal love. But this Urania is like universal love and unity and all that stuff. So it's a time where, it's like we need this unity and this universal love, because the world is just crazy right now. You got the whole proxy war that basically the American and the British, I believe in the German, all the Western financial institutions have started this proxy war with Russia where they're backing Ukraine. And you just had this election here in the US, and then you've got people's division over the whole the Wuhan cooties crisis, and whether or not they should have gotten the needlecraft. There's all kinds of stuff to be divided about. Elon Musk buying Twitter, letting Donald Trump back on. So there's a lot to be, people can get divided about. So we definitely need unity. We need universal love for each other. But it's also a time, look at the dark side of it too. It's also a time where basically these false messiahs, misleaders will come out and call for, love and unity and all that stuff in order to manipulate us, in order to promote one of their financial scams. It's like I'm shooting this on a Samsung Galaxy. It's an S21. It's pretty new. And it updated, and this like global goals app like downloaded automatically, and it's like, I don't want that shit, but it's like, help us reach our climate goals and help the unfortunate. And it's like, yeah, the environment's important, helping people is important, but it's like, do you, Samsung, really give a shit that much? So yeah, a lot of, especially self-appointed billionaire types like Bill Gates's, Elon Musk's, George Soros, Klaus Schwab's, they come in as these false messiahs promoting, unity and love and all this shit. So watch out for them. So look for the love and the unity, but watch out for the billionaire messiahs. Um, you know, and Elon Musk, speaking of him, I don't think he's a good guy, but he's helping us right now because he's shaking up this whole Twitter thing. Because, Twitter's been like basically a branch of NSA, and they've been basically promoting the Democratic Party and stifling anyone who disagrees with them. So Elon Musk is being a really helpful disruptor, but don't take him at face value, and don't be a Muskite, because Elon Musk is basically a televangelist preacher for atheists and for progressives. So don't take him at face value, like he's gonna fix the problems. You're gonna have to do your part, fix your own problems, and in doing that, you will fix the world's problems with your own little contribution. The age of messiahs is over. Gurus and messiahs, it's all done. So yeah, so that's Urania. Yeah, it's like, so yeah, we need this unity and universal love, but don't get fooled by a billionaire messiah, self-appointed world leader. All right. So the really important part of this, Hecate. So we look at the tropical. New moon is 1 degree Sagittarius. Hecate, really cool goddess. Ancient Greek goddess of, not the goddess of the underworld, because that's more, Persephone, along with Hades, aka Pluto. But Hecate was a light bearer who would shine, just like Loki, Lucifer, Prometheus, would shine light into dark places. So, these light bearers, they help us to see hidden things, the hidden sides of ourselves and in things in the world that were hidden from us. So yeah, Hecate, basically in her mythology, she carries these two torches, and she fits into the story of Persephone. So in one version, she helps Persephone's mother, Demeter, try to find Persephone after she's basically abducted by Hades or Pluto and taken to the underworld after their marriage. In another version, Persephone goes willingly to go marry Pluto, and Persephone guides her in with the light of her torches. And another interesting thing too with Hecate is she was basically an honored guest of the rulers of the underworld, Hades and Persephone, or Persephone and Pluto. So she can come and go from the underworld anytime she wants. She basically has this open invitation. And she's also a moon goddess. And again, the moon illuminates the night because it reflects the light of the sun. So, yeah, pretty interesting. So, yeah, that's basically the deal here is this lunar mansion deals with lighting dark places, lighting the underworld. So our personal underworld, our deep unconscious emotions, but then helping to clarify and illuminate the hidden sides and the hidden plots and scams and schemes and goings on in the world. So that's very important. Now, another important aspect for Hecate, she has the power to basically recruit the dead in the underworld to fight for her. So if you've seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy, this is like when Aragorn goes into the mountain to recruit the army of the dead to help him defeat Sauron's army. So this whole recruiting the army of the dead to fight for you, it's basically about going into your underworld and using your internal unconscious forces to reconstruct your life, because your built-in manifester is your unconscious mind. that creates your reality and all of your situations and circumstances. So, in the when you look at Brahma, the creator in the Vedic Hindu pantheon, he's a symbol for the unconscious mind who creates the world. So your unconscious mind creates your whole life. So if you don't like your life, you have to reorder your unconscious mind. And that's a big, that's a big value in things like astrology, rune readings. It helps you to do that. The way I was taught to do these types of readings is I give people custom mantras and meditations that help you to go deep into your unconscious and rearrange it and reprogram it so that it programs and manifests you a better reality day by day and little by little. Because it takes effort. You can't just read The Secret or do a course and have your unconscious mind, which is 90 to 95% of your mental activity. You can't just read the book or watch the documentary or take the course and have your unconscious mind completely formatted and never needing any maintenance or any effort. It takes effort, it takes maintenance. You have to keep going in there and reordering it. So, yeah, I basically build people who get these readings, these meditations. And then the Qigong too, very important for that. So it takes some effort. So yeah, but this recruiting the army of the dead, it's about going in there and basically recruiting your unconscious emotions and your unconscious thoughts and what are called your so-called paranormal gifts, your intuition, in order to help you build your life. And another aspect to this too, with recruiting the dead in the underworld, it's calling on the protection and the guidance and the teaching of our ancestors in the underworld. Now, another way to look at the underworld, it's your body, because your body has cellular memory. Cellular memory is a very popular concept in the worlds of health and fitness right now. And it's even making inroads into mainstream medicine. So you have this cellular memory where your cells remember everything from this present life, maybe even your past lives, which I think they do have that memory. And in addition, in your cells, you have the memory of your ancestors, because your ancestors are basically in your DNA. And I think DNA is an antenna for your soul, for your spirit, and for different energies. So, yeah, this is a time where we can very powerfully call on the protection and the guidance of our ancestors, because we also just went through Samhain. So Samhain was this year, it was October the 25th, the solar eclipse, followed by the lunar eclipse on November the 8th. And, Samhain is marked by that, let me see here. Yeah, it's the new moon and then the full moon. So, and whatchamacallit, sidereal, it's the Libra new moon. Yeah, Libra new moon, followed by the Aries full moon. That marks the 2-week Samhain season, which Halloween was named after. And then in tropical, it's, Scorpio new moon to Taurus full moon. So this year, the eclipse season perfectly coincided with Samhain. So, very powerful eclipse season. So, yeah, I think our ancestors are working hard for us, especially if you call upon them. And I encourage you all to do that. Whether you see this video today, later today, or you see it in the next few days, or even whenever, if you see this video years from now, you can always be calling upon your ancestors, because again, they live in your body with you. So yeah, having this come after Samhain, very powerful time to do this. I think any year, because it's taking place in Hecate. Tropically speaking, sidereally, this would be in it would be the following, new moon. So yeah, it would be around the winter solstice. So yeah, yeah. So yeah, by all means. Um, so yeah, very powerful time to call upon the ancestors here. And I think a lot of stuff is definitely coming out of the unconscious here. I think something huge is going to happen in the world here. I got this term Renfielding from Thomas Sheridan. He's an Irishman. He has a few YouTube channels, and Renfield was the lunatic in Bram Stoker's Dracula. He lived in a lunatic asylum, and he had previously been working as basically he was helping Dracula buy property in London, and he went over to Transylvania, but he lost his marbles, and when he came back to London, he was committed to an asylum. But he was cyclically linked to Dracula. His contact with Dracula basically infested his mind because his psychic shields, his psychic barriers and boundaries were very weak. So he had this link to Dracula, and as before Dracula's ship even arrived in England, he was raving about Dracula's return, and all the other lunatics in the asylum with him were also going crazy, even though they didn't know anything about Dracula. So when something big happens in the world, the psychic weather changes, and people who are very sensitive, who have some kind of mental imbalance, they start going off the rails. I've seen people just their hands shaking, and they're not in any danger, but they don't even know why they're so anxious and they're so wound up. But yeah, just the psychic weather, the vibes are affecting a lot of people really strongly. I think something big is going to happen in the world here. We haven't had Jupiter and Saturn in the signs they're in at the same time since 1962, 63. So we're kind of back to Cuban Missile Crisis, and we're in a similar, an apparently similar situation. And then too, we're also in a curse of the president's year. So in these 0 years here in America, since 1840, the presidents elected in these 0 years, more often than not, they die in office. And we have an especially sick and demented president right now. So he seems to be teetering on the brink, and not very long for this earth, just due to his health. And I don't wish anything upon him, but the guy's not doing well. So, and there's this whole thing that I talk about with the sacrificial year kings. So before you had, a malignant patriarchy in the world, ruling the world, well, ostensibly anyway, outwardly, you had a malignant matriarchy that used to sacrifice kings. Now, the rule in the ancient world used to be not to select a king or leaders in general in years when Jupiter and Saturn conjuncted, because it's a 20-year cyclical phenomena, and it's a generational cleanout. So if you select leaders when Saturn and Jupiter conjunct, that leader doesn't last long because a generational cleanout's happening. So the ancients used to wait to select leaders unless the matriarchy was going to select a year king, a sacrificial king. So they wouldn't necessarily sacrifice the king in that same year, but they would wait for the right time. But he wouldn't be on the throne for long. Or what would also happen is that king would have to fight a prospective new king. Whoever won would become the new king. But so every so often this would happen. So yeah, we may have a sacrificed king before long. So yeah, but yeah, with this whole thing with Hecate, with this this light being brought into the underworld. Something I think big on a global scale is about to happen. It's going to affect the whole world. And so these mentally unbalanced people are basically, they're like the canaries in the coal mine that they run out of air, when the explosive toxic gases are building up. And you're seeing this with these shootings around the US. It's like people who are unbalanced are just going over the edge. So it's going to be interesting to see whatever the hell it is that happens. Good chance it's going to be some financial drama. I think leaders being disgraced and deposed. If you look at how Xi Jinping was reprimanding Justin Trudeau at the G20 summit, and where was that, in Bali? These climate warriors flying around on their private jets, because they're the exceptions to the rules. But yeah, so Xi Jinping, the leader of China, was reprimanding Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. He has no ostensible authority over him, but through secret society activity, I think he absolutely does. And like I said, back with the Mars retrograde, Xi Jinping was going to be absolutely just angry and livid that his plans, especially his international plans, were going to go sideways. So, yeah, something globally very big is going to happen. I'm not really sure what. I don't think it's like a first contact thing or anything yet at this point. Economic changes of leadership. As far as war goes, I don't think any countries are really as big of dirtbags as the U.S. has been. It's like the United States nukes people. I don't think Russia's gonna do that. That's a big media scare, just scare people. And then I don't think a conventional war is gonna happen because I don't think the younger generation is gonna show up for it because they just know it's ridiculous, and they don't need a pat on the back like the older people do. And this is why the older people love to bag on millennials, because the older people are terrified of what other people think of them, and they'll do, pretty much, not all of them, but the mainstream of them will do anything for a pat on the back in order to be considered successful. So yeah, I don't think that younger generation is going to show up for a war, but definitely a time to deal with some deep unconscious stuff, in the world and within ourselves. So yeah, just don't get drawn into social media battles, and limit your news time and your substance time, your recreational drugs and your alcohol intake, because it's a psychically unbalanced time right now. And these computer viruses that the visual news media likes to spread, you can basically get infected by them, which I think there's some truth to the idea that the Wuhan cooties was it's almost a computer virus. It's like a mental fear virus that jumped from the mainstream media and through the devices that convey it into people's minds. So yeah, I think fear was really what put people at risk. But that idea is a little out there for a lot of people. All right, well, I'm gonna go do some stuff here. Hope you got something out of that, and I'll be back the kind of normal video schedule soon. So have a nice one. Thanks for tuning in.